Back Home Media.
Hello, everyone. After, a few technical difficulties, we are up and live. We've got Coach Aranda here with us on the show, and as always, Derek's here with me. So hello, everyone. Sorry we're a little late getting started, but welcome to In the Free Zone. Coach Aranda, why don't you introduce yourself to everyone for us?
David Aranda, head baseball coach at Elkhart High School. Been the coach now. This will be my 8th year. Just born and raised Elkhart, Kansas. Still got my roots here. So
there you go. I didn't realize you'd been doing it for 8 years now. Wow, that's
2014 was my first year. Yeah,
great. All right, Coach Aranda, you're a Rule 10 coach. For those that don't know what that means, a Rule 10 coach, what that means is that Coach Aranda doesn't teach at the high school. He is employed there only as a coach. Here's the question. What are some of the advantages and disadvantages of being a Rule 10 coach?
I guess advantages are I don't have to teach. That would be one of them. Disadvantages is it's the same, I guess. I don't have to teach, but not being in the building, it's tough communicating with administrators and with the boys. Makes it a little more difficult, but we get by.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. I was thinking it would have to make it harder to communicate with your kids, and
I was going to ask you, I grew up with you. You liked all sports. I kind of always pictured you more of a basketball guy. By the time you got out of high school, was baseball sort of like the predominant sport that you wanted to be attached to, and how did you get into baseball being your number one?
Well, I always wanted to coach, and I had, people in the past tell me, if you want to make money, don't do it, right? And as a young kid, that's what I always thought was important was, making money, As I got older, I started realizing it's more about enjoying what you do. So they had the baseball position open here at the high school, and the athletic director at the time was taking interviews, and so I applied for it, and he interviewed me. But they had offered it to a longtime AD and coach, Craig Murray. And so Craig, they were kind of waiting to hear back from Craig, and Craig decided he would do it one more year. It was his last year coaching. And so the AD at the time, Chris Buckner, he really liked my interview, so he brought me on as his assistant basketball coach. And I did assistant basketball under him for 2 years. And then Toby Henry, a buddy of his, came in, and I was his assistant for another year. And then the next year, the basketball position opened up, and I was the head basketball coach and took over baseball in 2014.
Yeah, that's great. So, Coach, what's your day job?
I'm a registered dietitian. I know you can't tell from this body, but that's what I do.
I didn't, last I knew you were doing, cardiac therapy or something like that.
Yeah, I'm a respiratory therapist as well. And I was the director of cardiac and pulmonary rehab at the hospital here in Elkhart. Then times got tough with insurance companies, and they were, the hospital was kind of struggling here for a little while, and I was kind of worried. I tell people I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. So I was actually going back to be a teacher and a coach. And in one summer, I took a nutrition class, and I really liked it, and saw that Kansas State offered a online dietetics program. And so that got the ball rolling for me.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
And you've pretty much been in some type of education since high school. I remember I was living on the East Coast, and whenever I would come back home and visit, you were in school in some capacity at some point. At what age did you realize that was going to be an important factor in your life of continuing your education? Oh,
pretty young. Raised by a single mom. and I knew that getting an education was going to be the best bet for me to get a job that I wanted to be able to provide. I mean, there's a lot of successful people that didn't go to school. I mean, a lot of my cousins, my family members know firsthand, but for me, I wanted something different, so I knew at a young age I was going to school.
Yeah. So, Coach, we just got a comment about the state championship. What I'd like you to do now is just kind of, and I know it's been, almost 2 years ago now, but kind of take us back to the state tournament in 2019 and give us a breakdown of the Cats' path to the championship that year.
Sure. I keep referring to it as last year. We missed last year. So the group of boys that were seniors that year, there was a core group of them that when they were freshmen, people kept asking me, how long are you going to coach? And I was kind of on the fence on, am I going to hang it up? Am I going to do this for a while? We were starting a family. And then this group of boys came through, Javier Gomez, Lane Wizenan, Elion Prieto, the really, really phenomenal athletes, the kind of once-in-a-lifetime class, And so after them coming in their freshman year, I thought, I'm going to see these guys through because I think we can do something special. And from the time they were freshmen, I knew that we were going to do something special with them. 2019, that year, there was a lot of curveballs thrown in the season. We missed a couple games and had to pick up some games. And so we ended up picking up a game with the defending 4A champs, Holcomb, and we ended up rolling them. And that was at that point I kind of knew, hey, we're going to be able to do something special with these guys. And we got into the regional tournament, and we struggled a little bit in the regional tournament, and kind of got me nervous. We weren't playing real good ball there in regional tournament, and we ended up winning it, of course, and then going to the state tournament. And going into the state tournament, didn't really know what was going to happen. There's always 8 teams, but 6 of the 8 teams were 3A the year before, and they did reclassification, and all 6 of those teams were in the 3A state championship. Were in that tournament in 3A the year before. So the field just got extreme, that much harder. And so we were kind of banking that we were the team to beat in 2A from the teams that were in it the previous year. But now all these teams that were coming in, we had gotten beat by Pitt Colgan, who was a longtime, powerhouse in 2A. We got beaten by them in the first round and the year before. And I just kept anticipating it was going to be them again that we were going to see in the first round because they stacked their schedule pretty hard. So, I mean, they always have a losing record going into regional play. And then because they have to stack with 6A, 7A schools out of Missouri and 5 and 6A schools in Kansas. And so they always have a losing record going in, but when they get to the tournament, they just run through it. So I was anticipating we were undefeated going into the state tournament, and I was anticipating seeing them. And they ended up getting beat in the first round of regionals, I think it was, by Cherokee. Humboldt ended up winning that region, which was a 3A school the year before. But we played Wichita Independent, who had won the 3A state tournament. It was 2 years prior. Right. We played them in the first round. And, with pitch counts now, it makes it a little trickier. You used to have 1 or 2 guys, and you could throw them 8 or 9. You could throw them 9 innings in 24 hours or 12 innings in 48 hours, but now it's a pitch count, which makes it a little tougher. So if you have 3 or 4 pitchers, you're going to get pretty far in the tournament. So the first game of the tournament, I had those 3 seniors that I mentioned, and then a junior by the name of Garrett Hall, who was our ace that year. And I pitched them all 30. If you don't go over 30 pitches, you can pitch again the next day. So I pitched them all 30 pitches, all 4 of them, and I had everybody for day 2. So we were fortunate to get through day 1, and we played independent, and I think the final score was 4-1 there. And then the next round we played Humboldt, and we rolled them. I forget the score. I think it may have been 14-2 or 14-3. And then we faced Marion in the championship game, and ended up winning it 3-2 in a walk-off fashion. So
that's awesome, man.
Yeah, that is.
What is the point with pitch count? Like, what are they trying to accomplish with setting a pitch count, and what exactly is a pitch count for people in the audience? I don't know what it is either, but
it's just to protect kids' arms. There was a lot of schools that were riding one or two kids, and there was a lot more injuries happening, so they instituted a pitch count. So the way it works is if you pitch 0 to 30 pitches, you don't have to rest. You can pitch the next day. 31 to 45 pitches, 1 day rest. 46 to 60, 2 days rest. 61 to 75, 3 days rest. And you can go up to 105 pitches and 4 days rest. And it's all about arm safety.
Yeah.
But that's very limiting, it seems like. Like, you kind of have to.
It is, especially with smaller schools. I mean, some of the things we're facing this year already, facing some teams who have, one or two good pitchers, and if they reach that pitch count, then you're facing guys that, they may walk the entire side, and it's just the nature of the beast. But nobody gets anything out of that. But it's all about arm safety, protecting the guys.
I think Ashworth mentions that, Norm. He said something about coaching these days with pitch counts and stuff.
Yeah, he was talking about how much harder it would be to coach these days with pitch counts and all of that.
Yeah, so it makes it a little more tricky. You have to kind of game plan in advance how you're going to run it. And so, like this week we had one game. We played last night over at Sublette, and I don't play again until Monday. So that's plenty of days rest. I could have thrown all my guys 105 pitches and still had every one of them for Monday. But, most of the games happen Tuesdays and Thursdays or Mondays and Thursdays. So you got to just kind of keep that in account. Make sure you have them for Thursday. You can't go over a certain amount on the previous game.
Yeah. Do you find it difficult to fit all this in, man? You got your full-time job, you got kids now, you're married. Is it difficult to fit this coaching in,
It was harder when I was going to school. I was in school for the last 5 years. I finally finished that up in December and took my registration exam and I started working in January. So, and it's tough now. I'm working over in Hugoton now. So I drive back and forth. I leave in the morning. I'm up before the kids wake up, and I get home and they're going to bed. So that makes it tough, not being able to see them like I want to. And then, of course, like any other coach's wife, they know there's a lot of sacrifices wives got to make during the season. And so she's getting them up, getting them fed, getting them to daycare, picking them up from school, getting them bathed and reading the books and going to bed. And, I miss out on all that. So, she'll let me know every once in a while, hey, remember what I'm doing here. I need a little help.
Yep. You already mentioned it once tonight, but tell us about losing the season last year, Coach. Especially what, besides defending the championship, do you feel like you lost?
Most of all, I hated it for the boys, that especially those seniors. We checked out gear, and I usually check out uniforms and gear on that first day, so we're not having to do it later on in the season when it's getting busier. I just check them out then. And 10 days later, I think it was, we're checking them back in. And just, I remember at the time, some of the boys kind of give me a hard time about it, but I remember at the time, there was so much unknown with it. I just said, hey, guys, just give it a couple weeks. You know what I mean? Let this die down. We can probably come back and make this work. And I didn't know, and I don't think anybody knew what was going to happen, and so the toughest part for me was the hurt in those boys, trying to console the boys. And, it doesn't, on the outside looking in, it's not a big thing for people, and all things considered, people were losing their lives in this whole deal. So, losing a baseball season seems minute in the grand scheme of things, but for those boys, it was the biggest thing in their lives,
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was tough. That was the toughest part for me. But another aspect of it is we're loaded with underclassmen in the teams this year. The core of our team is a group of sophomore boys, and there's a couple juniors, and on the team right now we have one player who actually contributed to that state championship team, and So last year was going to be that year where we went through the growing pains, them learning the speed of the game and them coming up to speed and learning the ins and outs. And we're experiencing all those growing pains right now. We're 5-1. We're 5-1 right now, but we could be playing a lot better ball. There's some talent on the team still, but
that to me, that gap in development is one of the going to be one of the major impacts of losing a year. We went to our first track meet last week, and all week getting ready for that track meet, I'm looking around and I'm thinking, God, we're terrible. We're going to go to that track meet and we're not even going to be competitive. And we got to the track meet and there were pretty good schools there. Derby's there and Bueller and Arc City has improved, and everybody else was terrible too. You can tell that nobody had a season last year. And I'm sure in baseball you're going to have a similar effect as well.
Yeah, we're experiencing that. It's not just us; it's every team we've played so far is making errors that normally wouldn't happen. It's tough. That's the toughest part of the current team is just losing out on that year of development.
Yeah. So how do you move forward from that? What do you do to try to make up for that?
I'm trying to we get 26 games total. And so this year we've always had a lot of when I first started, we kind of started out with maybe 17 guys on the team. But in the last few years we've gotten up to 30 plus, and there's in a two-way school, we're having to play up just to get JV games in, and right. Which benefits us. It's all about building the program for the future, and we get 26 games total, and that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm playing all those guys, even if they're major contributors on the varsity team. They're sophomores, juniors, and sophomores. I'm getting them all 26 games just to try to get that experience in, get those live cuts and get that fielding in and get all the experience just so they can speed up the learning curve. I wouldn't normally do that on a regular season, but it kind of forced this year.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, they need game experience. They lost out on a season of game experience.
Do you feel like Elkhart's do you feel like a lot of times when you get somebody when they're a freshman and they come to play ball, that the rec has done a good job as far as teaching them, the basics of the game?
Oh, this community is great in that aspect. Growing up, there was 8 Little League teams, 2 Babe Ruth teams, and the interest has gone down a little bit, but I guess I don't think it's necessarily the interest. I think it's the numbers we have. There was a lot more kids in the school system at that time, but there's still, I want to say, 4 to 6 Little League teams and a Babe Ruth team. And those youth coaches I try not to step on anybody's toes, but if they reach out to me and they want help with something, I'm always eager to help. So I'll step down there, and I don't take a lot of credit for it because I've been blessed with a good group of kids that make me look like a lot better coach than I am. But I help with those youth coaches as much as I can. Anytime they want help, they call, they reach out, ask for tips, drills, anything they can do. And that helps tremendously with building the program, especially now with the pitch counts, like we were talking earlier. If you don't have 3 or 4 pitchers, you're going to struggle. And so giving them tips and techniques on how to train up new pitchers is very, very beneficial for me going forward.
Who are some of your key players this year, Coach?
Returning, the only kid returning that contributed in that state game was Lance Addington. He's a senior this year. Lance pitches, catches, plays third base for us. He's our cleanup hitter.
Right.
And then Garrett Hall, who was our ace in 19, his little brother is a sophomore this year, and he's a really good pitcher too. He's, there's that development thing, still learning the game, but he gets by. They train. Baseball's their thing, so that's one thing about Elkhart is you don't have to beg these boys to play baseball. They play baseball here. And then my starting catcher on that team, his little brother is also on the team, and he pitches, shortstop, catches. Got a kid, Cage Ralston, who's phenomenal athlete. You know, he's pitcher, third base, shortstop. Those three are all sophomores. Austin Rich, sophomore. You know Ron and Ron Rich. That's Ron's boy.
Yeah.
And he's a sophomore. And then we got Clayton Cole, another sophomore. He was just voted All-State basketball. He's really, really good athlete. You know, Justin McKinley coming along, he's a junior. There's some pretty good contributors there. Julian Duran, sophomore kid, really surprising me this year. He started out mostly JV, and he's been leading the team in batting average. So he's been a pleasant surprise. And then we got another kid, Lane Wizenan, who was voted on that 2019 year. He was voted the Kansas 2A Player of the Year. His little brother is a junior this year. So there's some baseball bloodlines there for sure.
That's good. So what do you expect from this season? What are you looking for the team to do this season?
So far, I've been stressing just do the little things. You know, when we first started the year, it was tough not knowing what we had. I mean, as a coach, you're trying to scout other teams, but not having last year. I mean, you have no idea what you're getting into with each game. And honestly, before the season started, I had no idea what I was even going to have because none of them had played a significant varsity inning. You know, Lance in 2019, he's the lone contributor. He was my designated hitter that year and rarely played the field, you know. So, I mean, we're starting from scratch. So my expectations were just to get better because honestly, I believe that with the group of kids we have right now, that we can be competing for another state championship within the next year or two if we can get through that learning curve, you know. So my expectations this year were just to try to fix the little things, to get the learning curve, to shorten it as much as I can. And we, you know, just from judging what we have and the teams that are in our region, we have a good shot of getting back to state if we can get it all together.
I mean, but everybody likes winning more. I guess what's your takeaway whenever you're walking into a season knowing that you're probably not gonna, you know, do anything, you know, win a bunch of games? Like, what's the attitude like whenever you're walking in, you know, like, okay, this year I know we're rebuilding. Like, any wins are going to be like kind of surprising. Like, how do you prepare for that mentally walking into a season where you know that you're rebuilding?
And that's just it. Telling myself before the year, you know, Max Preps put out an article before the season started, and it was like most consecutive wins in the entire United States. And Elkhart, we were listed on that. Wow. So the boys see that, and you know, state rankings come out preseason, and they have us ranked second in the state, which is, you know, that's kind of a double-edged sword because, you know, it's off reputation alone. You know, they know the reputation of Elkhart baseball, but yet none of these kids have had a significant inning. You know, I keep going back to that, but so it's tough for them to understand. One thing I keep stressing to them is it's easier to reach the top than it is to maintain the top, because once you get to the top, you're getting everybody's A game. You're going to see everybody's best pitcher. And so getting them to understand, you know, especially this year, we can't afford to think we can just show up and somebody's going to lay down for us. But, you know, my expectations through the year were at this point, I expected us to be right where we're at. I expected us to be able to split with Huguenin, and we did. But the frustrating thing is we had that game, and we had 3 or 4 errors in one inning, gave up 3 or 4 runs, and we lose by 1 run. And so that's the kind of stuff that I'm stressing to the boys. Hey, I'm not asking you to do anything special. Just make the plays when they come to you, and that comes with experience. So, yeah, just before the season, just telling myself, okay, 2019 was a special team. You know, these guys can get there, but give them some – it's tough for me because I'm bad about – even in wins, I pick apart the little things that we need to do better, that we need to clean up. I need to take winning a little better probably. But
I tell you what, though, I think most good coaches, they're always looking for what can be improved no matter how well things go. They're always looking for what can be improved. So you've got a core of sophomore players. From that aspect, it seems like the future looks pretty bright for Wildcat baseball. But why don't you stare into your crystal ball here for just a little bit and tell us what you see for the future of Wildcat baseball? First, maybe a couple of years down the road, but then maybe even on beyond that.
With the core we have and the guys we have coming up, we're going to be competing for regional championships for sure. And then I always tell the guys, once you get to state, you never know what can happen. Anything can happen. But people don't understand how hard it is to win that state championship. I mean, I was talking to a good buddy, Thane O'Hare, and Thane always says, he got this from, I think, maybe his brother, who was a longtime football coach up at Andale, but Thane said, to win a state championship, you have to have the players, the coaches, and then you have to have a little bit of luck, and getting all that together is big. But we have the core, we have the players to be able to get to that point. But winning a state championship is a hard thing to do. And I honestly believe that with that group of kids, the young group of kids that we have, and the experience they're going to get from this year, we can be competing for another state championship here in the next year or two.
Yeah, that's great.
Are you going to be there in the next year or two to do that? Like, what are you loving it right now, or?
Oh, I do this now. Now I do this. That's, I mentioned earlier that I had somebody tell me before, don't get into coaching if you want to make money, right? So now I've got a great job, and it's not about that with me. It's about being a part of the program, and being a part of these young guys and helping them understand what it means to dedicate to something, to strive to finish something, and to commit to it. And to me, that's my biggest benefit. I've only been coached, this is my 8th year, but I still have kids from past teams that I've coached reaching out like, hey, thank you for this, thank you for that, wanting me to do references for them, just different things that they need. And that's what I enjoy about it, man. Just, growing up was tough for me in a single parent household, and just being able to be that for these guys, some of these guys is it makes me happy. That's why I do it.
Yeah. And that to me is always the best thing about coaching, is the relationships that you develop with your players and with the guys that you coach with as well, both,
right.
But especially with your players. Yeah.
So now this year, speaking of that, I have one of my assistant coach. We normally keep 3 coaches on staff. This year we just have 2. But my assistant coach is Cole Parks, who's a kid I used to coach, and that. Oh yeah. That's a kid that, that to me that's like one of the biggest rewards, is seeing them go off and get their degrees and come back successful, and then I get to coach with them. That to me that's a huge plus.
Yeah, that is. That's nice.
Not working at the school, do you have a relationship with faculty up at the high school, or like how does that work?
Yeah. So the secretary at the school sends me the eligibility reports every Monday. I get those, and so I'm on the boys about that, and I'm keeping the coach and the principal in the loop and everything that we do, and they're always back with me. Communication, keep that line of communication open. But yeah, the teachers as well. I keep a line of communication with them if there's certain teachers kids are having trouble with. Hey, what do we need to do to get this guy eligible? And I stress that academics pretty hard with the boys.
Yeah, that's great, and that's something. Of course, they're only going to be doing playing baseball in high school for a certain period of time, a short period of time.
Very short.
You got to prepare them for the whole rest of their life. And that's something that I think most coaches take pride in, is preparing students for what comes beyond high school. That's far more important than winning games and doing that type of thing.
Right.
So is what you're wearing, is that the new hat?
Yeah, these are the new ones. Nice. That hat you got there, that's a special hat. But apparently, everybody else loved them, but the boys secretly didn't like the hat. So I can't understand.
The boys didn't like this one?
Yes, I don't know what it was. So they told me after the season, Coach, we're not fans of those hats, right? I don't know if it's because of the flex fit or what, but so I had to switch it up for them, keep them happy. But we went back with the new era hats this year and kind of went with the two-tone.
Now, I actually reached out to you about a year ago and got this one from you. James Jenkins is also wondering, so what is this? Like, because Elkhart, a lot of times you have a school there's like a store you can go to and you can get the memorabilia for the teams and stuff. What is a situation like that in Elkhart like if people want to support that way?
Hey, yeah, so chance to plug my family here, right?
Uh-huh.
So my mom and my sister-in-law have a business here in town called Honeybees, and they do T-shirts, hats, embroidering. They do jackets, everything you could have.
There you go.
They do embroidering, screen printing, all of it. So they have that. But these team-issued hats, James, I got you, buddy. When you come up in June, I'll hook you up. These are exclusives here. So
yeah, there you go.
I don't know why they didn't like this one's. This one's awesome, man. Like
everybody says that. Everybody says that. Like I've got a cousin on staff up at Bueller, and I send him hats, and he sends me hats, from Bueller, and we just kind of support each other like that. But principal here, Jason Wilson, everybody just like, these hats are awesome. Why don't they like these? I was like, I don't know. It's the boys.
It might be a generation thing, like we were really into the Old English and the, I mean, this would have like, this coming out when I was in high school would have been like, wow, that's like really impressive stuff,
Well, Stu Moore, when they started the program, he was the first head coach, and he had that E, and that's what they've always had. And there was a couple coaches who came through. There was one coach who came through who changed the E for a while, but as soon as I took over, I changed it back. So
yeah,
keep the tradition.
I'm going to say it's too much orange. That's what the kids didn't like. Is that have an orange bill on it there, Derek? Yeah.
Maybe, yeah. Maybe.
I don't know. I know when I coached football there, they wanted just black and white. They didn't want a lot of orange on stuff.
Right.
So like, what was like? So I'm guessing like every year you probably have like a certain budget and everything for your season and everything. What was it like whenever you missed an entire season? Was there any kind of budget issues, like missing an entire season of ticket sales and all that kind of stuff?
Well, we don't have a budget anymore. We have an athletic budget that kind of covers all the sports, but baseball specific. Mm-hmm. If there's anything we want, we usually have to do fundraisers for it. Mm-hmm. And we do a fundraiser every year where we raise a pretty good amount of money. But this year, because we weren't allowed to do fundraisers, the school was like pretty much like, hey, listen, we know you need gear, whatever you're going to need. They changed the rules this year too, where they actually changed it last year, but heart condition called commotio cordis, where if the ball hits the catcher in the chest, it just takes one kid for them to institute a rule. But now the chest protectors have to have a metal plate in the chest protector itself to protect the heart. Yeah. So we had to get, for JV and varsity, we had to get 4 new sets of catcher's gear, and then, of course, helmets, just like football helmets. They run out of date. We had to replace helmets this year, and now they're changing. Of course, a couple years ago, they went to BB Core bats. So it used to be like drop 5, drop 7 bats where you had huge barrels on these things when we were in school, and everybody was hitting home runs. I remember being 13 years old and guys stepping on the field and hitting home runs, and now we switched to BB Core, and it's a rarity if you're hitting home runs. You really got to connect with it. But not only that, but this year they also switched the ball. So now the ball was coming off not as hot off the bats, the BB Core bats, and now they've changed the ball to make it even less of a high speeds coming off, just for safety of the kids.
Yeah, so, trying to protect those pitchers.
Yeah.
Yeah. There we go.
You said your assistant coach. He's a former. How long ago did he play?
Oh, let's see. He actually was. I didn't have the opportunity to coach him in baseball. I think the year after he graduated. I think he graduated in 2013, but I coached him in basketball and got to take him on a few recruiting trips in basketball. And then he ended up moving back. He's Rule 10 as well. He's the IT guy for the hospital. So he was able to pull it off, that he could help me coach this year.
That's great. And why cut back to only 2 coaches? Was that a budgetary thing with the school, or? No,
not necessarily. I'd had Will Fraunfelter, who was a phenomenal coach. The kids loved him, and he was part of that. He's actually the only 2-time state champion in Elkhart.
Right, was part of the first state championship there, yeah.
Player in 2002, and then my assistant in 19. He had, some personal reasons why he couldn't do it this year, and he was also Rule 10, so hated to see him go, but I understood, his situation. But so we tried to find guys who could pull it off, and got Cole hired right before the season started, and we have a guy who's moving in next year who played some college ball. And I just, at that point, when I heard he was coming, I thought, man, kind of pointless to hire another coach and then tell them they can't do it next year. So we just make it work with two this year, and then have him for next year.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I was going to ask you, Norm interviewed Craig Friedendahl about almost a year ago. But Craig was talking about how, his biggest challenge was he played ball in Elkhart, and he feels like the only reason he went anywhere further is because, he actually put himself in tournaments, and he actually put himself, basically paying to play baseball, getting his name out there so he can be seen by the right amount of people. When you're in the southwest corner of Elkhart, where they're kind of like, they're almost like, well, you're Oklahoma and Colorado's problem. We're like so far down there. Is there such thing as people getting baseball scholarships in Elkhart? Is that something that happens frequently, or what's the situation like that with people furthering their education using baseball?
Yeah. So we've had some good ball players come through. And some of them signed football scholarships. First kid I had sign a baseball scholarship was a kid named Randy Moreno, and he's playing at Kansas Wesleyan, and he graduates this May, actually. Wow. So he'd been playing football and basketball, or football and baseball at Wesleyan. And then the boys that won the state championship in 19, I had 4 of those kids end up playing ball. 3 of them went to Butler, and then one of them transferred back home to Seward, and 2 of them are playing at Seward now. But like Craig said, a lot of these colleges, like the JUCOs, are mainly around some pretty populated areas, and they can get a pick. I mean, if you're in the Wichita area like Butler was, you can get a pick of several different high schools, and you only have to drive 20 minutes to get to them, So nobody's going to come to Elkhart, which is 5 hours down the road, to see a guy when they've got a handful of them right in their backyard. So I actually reached out to Craig and to his dad, Tim, during this time, because these boys, I knew that they were talented enough to be playing college ball, so I wanted to give them that opportunity. So I reached out to both of them, find out what'd you do, how'd you do it, and when Craig signed with
Rangers, right? Or was
he signed JUCO ball over at
Neosho. Isn't that where he played?
Cali County.
Cali County, yeah.
Yeah. When he signed there, his dad took him for a workout. And that's how they saw him and got him signed. So those coaches, again, didn't come out here to see him. He went to them, And then so I took that advice, and I just called different coaches around and set up workouts for them, and took the boys to Dodge City, Garden City, Butler County, to Seward, and just let them pick. Say, hey, watch these guys try out, and as soon as they see them, then they're like, okay, we'll give them an opportunity, and then just let the boys pick from there. But I also reached out to Oklahoma Wesleyan, and the coach there, his name I knew it right before I said it. He used to coach the Dusters here in Elkhart. And so now he's down at Oklahoma Wesleyan, and he's dying to get one of our boys on his team. So every year he's reaching out, hey, you got any more? You got any guys who want to come down here? And Wesleyan is it's a private school, so tuition is extremely high. So that's the only thing that's turning a lot of the kids off. But yeah, he's given opportunities too. So
yeah, now, I know even at Liberal, you know, we're a bigger school, so the kids get a little more exposure, although still out here in Southwest Kansas. For those kids that want to go on and play in college, it does seem to be all about travel ball in the summers and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And that playing in those tournaments and playing, you know, on teams like the Kansas Curve and, you know, teams like that where they're playing in Wichita and Kansas City and places like that every weekend.
Right. So Liberal has a team called the Rattlers, who's pretty competitive, and several of our boys play on that team. And actually, one of our kids is playing for the Curve in the summer. So Cade Ralston. So that's the thing with these guys. You know, Cade Ralston, he would play a football game on Friday nights. He's a starting quarterback. He's a sophomore. He'd play a football game on Friday night, turn around, go to Wichita and play baseball for the Curve on Saturday. You know, so that's the thing is I don't have to convince a lot of these boys how serious it is. You know,
right?
They do it.
Yep.
Do you think? What are your thoughts on that? Like the kind of, you know, talent's not really enough. And Craig was, you know, 2001 when that was. This is a long time ago. Craig is an old man now. But like, I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Like the being great at the sport really isn't enough. You kind of have to figure out a way to get on these teams that are traveling and stuff. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
You know, I wish we had something here more that would keep the boys here, or somebody who could do it. We haven't had Legion ball in a long time, or the old group, because a lot of the kids are working in the summers. You know, makes it tough. But the guys that they can do it, their parents are taking them. You know, like Cesar Gomez, him and his brother both have played for the Rattlers, and their dad supports them and takes them to these games. And Cade Ralston, he played for the Rattlers as well, and the Curve. And then you got kids like Garrett Hall and Weston Hall, whose parents take them to Amarillo to these 5-tool camps and clinics all the time. And I'm all for it. You know, I mean, if they can afford it, then do it. Because to me, I'm not naive enough to think I'm the coach. I only want them doing what I want. You know, if they can hear it from another voice and it gets it through more effectively than I can, it's only going to benefit me. So I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Was it hard putting that orange and black on, being a Lobo? I know your past, buddy.
You know what? I'm very proud of being a Lobo. Matter of fact, you know, when I was in high school, I was an idiot. You know, I didn't understand what it took. I didn't understand what it took to really work for something. And I had a coach, James Hinton, who, man, he taught me a hard lesson. And for a long time, I blamed him. We were competing for state track, and me and another guy, you know, Ray Barco, who was a close friend of mine who passed away, you know, several years ago. We were, you know, a couple other guys, we were competing for state track. And at Yarborough, the coaches were also the junior high coaches. And so they were gone for a junior high track meet, and they left us a workout, and we said we did it, and we didn't, you know. And now as a coach, I understand that, you know, I would hate that if I did that with my boys and they didn't do it and they lied to me, you know. And so for a long time, you know, I had some offers for different sports, you know, and football and mainly. And I got burned out. And for a long time, I blamed him. But as I got older and, you know, I wouldn't say wiser. I still feel like I'm pretty stupid. But, you know, I learned at least a little bit. I understood what he was doing. And so I got kicked off the track team. I lost the opportunity to play in a couple all-star football games. I lost opportunities to play. And as I got older, I realized, you know, without that lesson, I may not have learned, you know, what it really takes. And so I'm really close with him to this day. We still talk all the time. And, you know, he tells some of his players about that story. And I tell my players about it too. I use it. And to me, I think the kids respect it a lot because I'm not just telling them, hey, don't do that because it's the wrong thing. I'm telling you because I've been through that,
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, for me, like as somebody who's not super into sports, I'd be like, all right, coach, let's take it down a notch, like, so they lied about, but I mean, at the end of the day, like, you think you have a rapport with somebody, you think, like, I'm sure it would crush you if you found out like a couple of your players were just lying to your face, saying they liked this hat for a whole season,
Yeah.
And you find out they hated it. I'm sure you were crushed, man. I mean, I get like how your coach would have been upset. You guys just say you did something, you didn't do it,
Yeah. So going back to that, where you were going, you had asked, I am proud of that. I'm proud of being a part of that, but I always wanted to be a Wildcat. And so it wasn't hard for me. To put that on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And really, your mom had one. I don't think it was your idea to homeschool. Your mom had decided you and your brothers and sisters were going to homeschool, and then it was basically just a credit situation, right? Like you came to go to school in Elkhart, and they weren't going to be able to count the year of homeschool, and Yarborough was able to count it, or they just tested you out, Yarborough.
Yeah, right. If we wanted to come back to Elkhart, we would have had to have gone back a year, and now looking back on it, at that time I was like, no way am I doing that, but now I'm like, man, I should have done it. I should have just came and done it because those boys won the state championship.
Yep.
2002, they won it, and I would have been a part of that, But at the time, you don't think about that kind of stuff. You're just getting done and getting out of there. So we ended up – Yarborough was just 8 miles down the road, and we didn't have to move. And they said as long as we passed placement exams, we could come there and knocked it out of the park, and the rest is history.
Yep.
Are you able to patronize some of the other sports? Do you and your family get out to like the basketball games and all that other stuff?
Oh yeah. I actually, from my background in healthcare, a lot of the coaches ask me to kind of be the trainer on game days, and so I'm taping ankles on sidelines and diagnosing injuries and different things like that. But yeah, we're a part of all of them. We get to be a part of all of it.
That's good. Yeah. By the way, I'd just like to say my wife is a Yarborough Lobo too. So, I
know that. I don't
have a thing against Yarborough at all.
Yarborough's finest.
That's right.
I heard they sniff glue. That's all. I'm just kidding.
No. I thought they ate glue. I thought they were glue eaters.
I used to say that too. You bunch of glue eaters, and then it got out there. I could never find the glue, so there may be something to that.
That goes back to like Travis Worth and Brody Ayler and Greg Bentley, I believe, is where that came from. Is because they had, even though Travis at that time went to school down at Yarborough, and this is when they knew each other in like grade school and stuff, but they went to church together, and they accused him of being a glue eater, and I think he accused them of being either marker sniffers or crayon eaters or something. I don't know what it was.
Hey man, there's a lot in that 8 miles, man.
That's
where that came from, if I remember right.
Well, that carried on too, because of course we had Will Murray and Seth Neese in our class, and their aunt Terry was a teacher out there, so we took every opportunity to give her a hard time.
I'm sure that's true. Yeah. Well, awesome. Coach, hey, we've eaten up quite a bit of your time this evening, and probably ought to let you get back to your family. Maybe get that laundry done.
Yeah. It's baseball pants. I wash the uniforms just to make them last. So
yeah, I get it. We do the same thing over at Liberal with our track uniforms. We take them up after every meet and wash them ourselves because there's no telling what happens with them. Hey, there we go. Is that Miles?
One last question for you. What's up, Miles?
See, he's ready, Coach. He's ready.
Yep.
David, I was going to ask you, in your opinion, because you played ball in Elkhart all these years, you've been in Elkhart for a long time, so you've seen a lot of these teams that were after us. In your opinion, who do you think was the most versatile baseball player Elkhart's had play on the team? I'm going to put you on the spot, man.
Oh, man, of the guys I played with, I would have to say Seth Neese.
Really?
That guy could play anywhere you put him, Catcher, pitcher, third base, center field. It didn't matter. He was going to get the job done. We called Seth to come. As a matter of fact, Seth reached out to me after we won the state championship game. We had a long conversation, and it felt good to talk to him. It was kind of, him talking about, the pride of the baseball program and how it'd been down for several years, and now we're back. And he was kind of talking to me about memories and things like that. And so it was good to hear and talk to him. But he played some serious ball himself too, at Garden and at I think he played at Emporia as well.
Yeah.
It was Emporia.
I think so.
Yeah, Seth was kind of the same way in football, too. I mean, I wouldn't have probably ever stuck him on the line, but pretty much anywhere else he could have played,
Right, yeah. I mean, the guy was just so fast. It was unbelievable fast.
He had speed and athleticism, yeah.
Well, Dave, we really appreciate you doing the show, man. This has been really fun.
Yeah, it has. Yeah. Thanks a lot for coming on, Coach. And
Thanks for having me.
Good luck with the rest of your season.
When do you guys wrap up? Like when do you get to postseason stuff?
May, the week of I think it's May 17th is when regionals start. Mm-hmm. The week after that will be state. So, yeah.
And if I remember right, you're not having any real changes in the format at state this year, are you?
No, not as far as I could tell. The Acacia's put out some regulations. They say we got to wear masks in the dugouts, no shaking hands after the games, no seeds, that kind of thing, But
there's still going to be 8 teams there at the tournament. They're not cutting it down to 4 teams, or
Still baseball.
Still baseball. I know. It seemed like most of the spring sports they weren't messing with too much. Track, they obviously had to make some adjustments. That state track meet's a pretty huge deal, and I think they felt like they had to cut that down a little bit, but.
Largest track meet in the U.S. Yeah, that's we tough to pull that off.
Yeah. So basically this year it's going to be 3 one-day meets. I think 5 and 6. It's going to be 5 and 6A on Thursday, 3 and 4A on Friday, and then 1 and 2A on Saturday.
I hope that's temporary, because that was a pretty cool event.
It should be, as far as I know. It's just going to be hopefully a 1-year deal, but. Because it is. It's a great event. The Kansas State track meet. It's something everybody ought to see once. Well, Miles, we're going to let you have your daddy back, okay, buddy?
Let me show this off one time.
Yeah, there we go. Nice. That's looking
now,
good.
Where did I get one of those? Like, I'm all Elkhart member. Do I got to do sit-ups? Like, what do I got to do to get the ring?
Hey, those are not cheap in more ways than one, Derek.
Hey, I want to say something about that too. So the boys, I think, ended up having to pay less than $100 a piece for them, because we've got a youth program here in town. Mm-hmm. I was there's several involved, but Dusty Brillhart heads that up, and he donated a lot of money. Several other people donated money, parents, grandparents, businesses, but they donated a lot of money. And he's like, hey, the only thing we ask is we have a junior tournament, and can you guys help us with scorekeeping and ref? And I said, you donate that kind of money, we're in debt for life. So the boys were able to get the rings at next to nothing for them, which was part of that's part of the benefit of being in a community like Elkhart. It really is a great community.
Yep, absolutely. Well, Coach, thanks a lot for being with us. We appreciate it. We'll let you get back to your family and back to those pants. And hopefully we'll get a chance to talk to you again, on down the road here after the season's over or something like that.
I hope so. Hope so. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Thank you for being here. And everybody else, guys, thanks for being here this week. As always, In the Free Zone with Norm is a production of Back Home Media. Go to their website, check that out. Check out the other podcasts that they offer. And of course, right below me, you'll see the different platforms that our podcast is available on. Go there, subscribe, download, and listen to the podcast whenever you get a chance. And thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back with you next week.
Well, I don't think and I thought it, that's different. I said what I said and I meant it, or lamented. Words given weight without thought in a person, the way that I talk and the way that I ought to be able to pause and to say that the fault can be placed on my arms. I display for the salt, to disgrace in its arm. Pray for the day they could wait for the calm. You can't control the storm. Only whether it's 5 weeks and 5 days of rain sideways, or scorched earth, search for death, or water left with all the thorns, with the petals gone, settle on the breath of autumn. If the ground fits, wear it, the crown fits.